name is Gilad Hekselman. I'm a guitar player. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm originally from Israel. I moved to New York about 14 years ago to play music and go to school, and I've been there ever since. And currently I'm touring a lot with my band and with other people's bands in many countries around the world. And yeah, back in New York, playing gigs there, living the family life too. I got a family there. That's pretty much a story of what I'm up to these days. What is the place of improvisation in my music? It's in everything, actually. At least I try to have it in everything, because I like the element of being human in music. I like to hear humanity in music. So it doesn't matter if I play a part of a song that is specifically supposed to be an improvisation, or if I play even the written material. To me, there's always an element of improvisation in the subtle elements of the music. So when I'm successful at what I'm trying to do, improvisation is in everything I do. My melodic influences, I'm assuming you refer to things that influence how I play melody. They vary, and they start with music that I heard growing up on the radio or on TV, and I guess my biggest first melodic crush was over Michael Jackson's music. So that was a massive influence on me at a younger age, and I definitely don't limit, even nowadays. I don't want to limit my influences, melodic or otherwise, to guitar players. So actually the biggest influences I have in terms of how to play a melody are singers. So starting with Michael Jackson, but Nat King Cole, Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, like people that I admire, and also not in jazz, different bands that I'm into, and I'll try to sit down and actually study how they phrase certain melodies to make them more effective. I believe that's an overlooked part of the art form. That singers, if they're great, then they're the biggest masters of those things. How to phrase a melody, where to stop the breath, where to start the breath, how long a note is, how loud it is, the texture of it, all that stuff. There's a lot of detail in voice and when somebody uses it, great. It's really there's so much to learn from it. So there's a lot of influences, and maybe it would be hard for me to name all of them, but in terms of how to play a melody, I would say the biggest ones are probably singers, maybe some piano players, and maybe some saxophone players. Studying jazz standards was a big part of how I learned to play the music, because the way I learned all these standards is from recordings of singers, and as I just mentioned, singers and the way they phrase was a big influence on me as a musician. So instead of luckily I had teachers early on that told me that that's the best way to learn standards. So instead of opening a book, or looking for a chart, the first thing I always do is just find out what versions I like of a song. If I can find a few great singers, great vocalists of a song, then I'll just transcribe their phrasing, and check out the differences in different versions. Sometimes the harmony would be different in different versions, and in a way it has influenced my playing a lot, because it improved my harmonic ear. I was able to hear harmony better. It of course gave me I think maybe a truer connection to the standards that I learned in this way. There was a sense of honesty there, because I can hear the song in my head with the lyrics, with the expression, with as an actual song. So yeah, I guess the studying standards was a very influential thing on how I play. I remember when I was younger, and I still study new standards sometimes, but when I was younger, it was almost a competition between me and my friends, who's going to learn the most standards. And then saying, hey man, do you know this tune? And if you don't know it, then you kind of keep a list, and you just study a lot of tunes. So it was a really nice competition to have between us, because it helped us all evolve in that sense. So as I mentioned, even when I play something that is composed, I want to keep an element of improvisation in how I play it. But the other way around is also true, where you know, when you're a jazz musician, you work, you know, your whole life you work on being able to come up with ideas in real time on the spot. So sometimes it's nice to, instead of thinking of composition as something really slow and accurate, sometimes it's nice to let go of that thought and just see if you can basically improvise a composition. So I had a teacher at the New School, Jan Bloom, and a saxophone player, and she was talking about that a lot, like how compositions sometimes should be just like we treat improvisation, you know, more of a documenting of your language already, and trying to capture that. So, you know, she had us do exercises like setting an alarm clock for the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. or something, and, you know, have the instrument ready and like record the first thing that comes out of your instrument, and then next morning transcribe that. So when I compose, I mean, it's not always the case, but sometimes I try to instead of like really insisting that every note is it this or that, or, you know, choosing the right notes and really, I do that sometimes too, but sometimes the opposite. Sometimes I just try to see what comes out. Oh, that sounds nice. Okay, write it down, and then, you know, move on to the next thing. Or even record myself, just improvise for a second. Oh, that's a nice part of the improvisation. Let me write that down. So yeah, they coexist, improvisation and composition, because essentially we are real-time composers as jazz musicians. When we improvise, we compose. It's just not written on a page yet. Right now I have two bands that I'm touring with, and both of them are trios. One of them is my trio with Rick Rosato and Jonathan Pinson on drums and bass, and the other project is Super Octave. The touring band is Aaron Parks and Kendrick Scott, and we just released a record that has those same people except Kush Abedi on drums. And they're kind of very different projects, but I decided to put them on the same record. The record is called Ask for Chaos, and yeah, check it out. It has like it has some of the classic sound of my old recordings in terms of like a guitar trio with bass and drums, but the other band, Super Octave, is like a more electronic with keyboards and yeah, kind of electronic, but still trying to keep the element of improvisation and playing in the moment. I feel like sometimes, maybe, at least the way I see it, sometimes you hear projects they're electronic and they sound a little rigid. Everything is too planned out, but we try to keep the element of surprise and improvisation in there. So anyway, listen to it. Ask for Chaos. It's out September 7th, 2018.